And welcome back, everybody. Back here again on the Shield of Faith podcast. Um, I am Jesse Phipps, and with me, as always, is my good friend.
Garrett Mussett. How y'all doing today?
It's been a little bit since y'all got to see us, and we've got to get together and study Bible and talk to y'all. And we apologize for that. Life had gotten a little nuts for a few weeks there. It'll be almost, by the time this releases, it'll be almost a month between our episodes there. But life had just kind of gotten out of hand.
Yeah, and think of it as a little breather. We don't want to beat y'all over the head, but we want to put out enough content for y'all to be watching or listening to. But maybe it makes it more of an item.
Yeah.
We are producing scarcity in our market here.
That's you know what? That's a good way to look at it. No, so but I mean, before we get off into this too much, I would just like to say, hey, y'all make sure that you're helping us out by sharing all of this, getting the word out, helping us grow this podcast, this platform a little bit. I mean, it takes y'all sharing it and talking about it and getting people interested in it to grow it. So, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, we normally do this at the end of every episode. If y'all enjoying what you're hearing, make sure you're telling people about it. Make sure you're sharing it. Give us some feedback. We'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do. And we, and when we encounter folks out in public who ask us about our podcast, or they've listened to us or watched before, they've always told us about it, that they were listening, and maybe sometimes they have pointers, and sometimes they tell us they appreciate what we're doing. So we just want to tell y'all that we appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for reaching out and letting us know that we're out here, we're doing this to try to further the kingdom, and the feedback like that, it goes a long way for us.
Right. Yeah. And, in that vein, we've got a few followers, we've got a few listeners and everything. But it really does, like I said, reiterate, it does take y'all sharing it. Jesus started with 12.
That's right.
And they shared it, and then it grew, it exploded. And so that's what.
And there's not a whole lot of people on this earth about, 2,000 years later that hasn't heard the gospel.
So, right. Yeah. So,
it started with one and a group of 12 that he was teaching it to. So,
yep, for sure. Most everybody has at least heard the name Jesus.
That's right.
And so, that's just a testament to what word of mouth advertising can do.
Hey, speaking of that, I seen something very interesting the other day. So it was from what's the city next to Mount Vesuvius? Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's from an archaeological dig in Pompeii, and or one of the cities near there. Anyways, ancient Greek city.
Yeah,
and they hadn't necessarily fully adopted the gospel of Jesus Christ as their religion. However, a lot of the things that they were making at that time, like cups and plates and stuff like that, they were inscribing the name of Jesus on it because they knew it had power.
Yeah.
And it would ward off evil spirits.
Yeah, I have seen some of that stuff that they're finding.
I found that extremely interesting.
They're finding these artifacts in these ancient Roman, first century Roman villages, that have since been obviously abandoned and ruined.
Right.
And they're finding inscriptions and engravings, depictions, and all of this stuff of Christianity, of Jesus, of all of these figures that you read about throughout, the first 5 or 6 books of the New Testament. And that's pretty interesting that you're finding all these things now that are really backing it up, and that just goes to show, that it was a little bit different then, the first century technology and how they spread the word and things like, and how news traveled, and now we're finally our technology is finally getting aware to the point where we start uncovering stuff.
Well, it was just amazing to me that there's power in the name of Jesus Christ, and they didn't fully believe or maybe even know the full story,
right?
But they knew that name had power to it, and they wanted to be able to utilize that.
Well, and a part of that shows their culture. I mean, Paul even played on it some. He talked about them having the the altar to the unknown God.
Right. Yeah.
And he was saying, you know, that unknown God you're thinking of, that's Jesus Christ. Like, you know, that's the only one you need to concern yourself.
That's right. Something kind of right along those lines that I also thought was very interesting. I know I'm already leading off with some rabbit chasing here, but it's been building up ever since we done the last episode. So I got a full bandolier of ammunition.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was a fella who was he was an atheist, and he had set out to disprove the Bible.
Lee Sobel.
I don't remember his name, but he was in an interview, and anyways, he had researched every religion that has been written down and has its own book all around the world. And one of the patterns that he noticed is that nearly every religion around the world, whether that's Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism, all their books that are read today mention Jesus Christ as a way to get to heaven.
Right. Some, you know, in some capacity, they're referencing it.
And in the Bible, particularly the New Testament, Jesus is the only deity type figure that says, I am the only way.
Yeah, I am the way. No one gets to the Father but through me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that that lends a lot to the,
yeah,
you know, what we're trying to do here.
Yep, I think so, absolutely. So, you know, we kind of left off last time. We were in John. We're going to continue our study of John here. We kind of left off, starting to get into the middle of the miracles, and you know, we've done some studying since, and so we're gonna kind of pick back up to here, kind of in the middle of John 5, and we're talking about this is right after Jesus healed the lame man. You know, he had been at the pool, and every time that it would bubble, he had been there for 38 years. And every time it would bubble, he would try to get down the water, but he'd been there so long and he was so crippled up that he couldn't get down there before somebody else would trample on him or beat him to it, and there was no one left to help him. Everybody had abandoned him, wasn't going to help him no more, like all these things. And so, you know, you think about it, this guy was, I just imagine, he's pretty desperate.
Right.
Like he just had no hope, was lost. He just needed some help. You know, and
he was trying to get to the healing waters of the pool of Bethesda.
Yep, pool of Bethesda, and he just couldn't get there. You know, and he just couldn't do it. And so Jesus goes there, and I find it interesting that he goes straight to him. Of all the people that are there, the recorded instances, that he went straight to him, and he didn't ask him. The way he asked him what he asked him is kind of interesting to me. You know, he said, you know, why would you like to be healed? And that seems like kind of a dumb, obvious question.
Right.
Just look at it, just look at it surface value. But he wasn't just like, hey, dummy, would you like to be healed? That's kind of condescending.
Why would you like to be healed?
Yeah. And what he was sitting there getting at, I think he was asking him, is your faith strong enough to be healed?
Like, yeah, or what exactly are you going to do with this?
Yeah.
With this good health.
Right. And, you know, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And the fact that he was there for 38 years, and that shows that Jesus' interest in going to those who are the most broken, the most destitute, you know, those that are the most desperate, the most lost.
Right.
Like those are the people he's really there for. Like he's those, you know, anytime you feel like you're lost or you're beat down in life, that's Jesus is there for you in that moment.
Right.
That's why he's there. He's not, you know, of course he's there for you when you're strong, but that wasn't truly the reason he came when he came. He came for those who were broken and lost. And he says that multiple times. You talk about like the parable of the lost sheep. I'm going to leave the 99. I'm going to go after the one.
Right.
You know, I'm going to go to the one who's lost and by themselves and has given up hope. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Then, so what day of the week did that happen on, Garrett? I mean, that was a big deal for them.
On the Sabbath.
On the Sabbath. So on Saturday, on 7th day of the week.
Right. And you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. And at the time, that was Jesus's work.
Right. Yeah. And so that was their interpretation of the Torah. That was how they were taking it and saying, you should not be doing anything. And that caused them to start forming their problem.
Right.
With Jesus. They had built this system of laws. Like you talked a little bit about when we get stuff set up here. They built a system of laws to make themselves separate from the Romans.
Right.
And I don't know if you want to go off into any of that at all. You know what we were talking about earlier, but they made it to where they were trying to find a way to keep themselves as the Jewish people remain in their identity.
Right.
Which I thought would be, when you said that, it was pretty neat. And it brought in the fact that, and you get to see this depicted some in the Chosen series, but if you study history and stuff, you do know that Pontius Pilate, he was kind of a tyrannical governor to an extent. He, we portray him in modern sense in Western culture as the guy who was like, no, I don't want to do this. This is on you. But that really wasn't him. He was known for being abusive. Like he was known for being, he abused his power.
Right.
He was put in Judea as punishment for that.
Right.
And what he did,
because nobody really wanted to go there.
Nobody really. It's a backwater. It was considered backwater. Nobody wanted to deal with these people. Nobody wanted to deal with the sweltering heat that was in the desert.
Right.
Nobody wanted that. They did not like that idea. But he took the high priest's robes that they would use during the ceremonies, the Passover, when they would sacrifice and things like that, the Day of Atonement, those robes, and he took them from them. And he would give them back 14 days ahead of time, so that they could ceremonial clean them. But I thought that just shows you how he abuses power, how he uses power.
Right.
And to how oppressive the Roman rule was. Not only just taxes, which is talked about a lot throughout the New Testament, and how taxes are to be handled. And Jesus says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar, all those things. But
right.
Just the abuse of power that went on throughout the Romans' occupation there in Judea. You fast forward another 40 years past Jesus, and they destroyed the temple.
That's right. In 70 AD, I believe.
Like 70 AD.
The Romans destroyed it.
Yep. They did not leave a brick on top of another one.
Which is exactly what Christ said would happen.
Yep.
He said there will not be one brick on top of another.
Yep. And so,
which is crazy.
It's insane. And you think, like you said, brick. It is crazy. It's not only crazy that he predicted it, and it came to be, anybody. I'm not saying just Christ, but anybody to predict something like that. You're like, whatever, dude. No, there's going to be at least one brick on top of another one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, he was not speaking figuratively. There was not one brick left on top of another one.
But I mean, and also Jesus said a lot of things like that would come to pass, and that he said it for the intent and purpose of showing that he is the Messiah.
Right. Yeah. I not only is it so outlandish that I'm saying, but because it's so outlandish and I'm saying it, it's going to come and happen exactly how I'm saying it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
sorry, I was a little preoccupied there. My wife texted me and said the power's out at the house. She was wondering if the bill was paid. It was paid, but I guess it was from the storms last night.
Oh, yeah.
We're out of power right now.
Yeah, we have been having a stream of storms, almost night after night.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad.
It's been pretty crazy.
We had one of the largest supercells to come through this area last night. It went to the south of us and hit Fort Worth. Luckily, it kind of powered down before it hit Fort Worth.
Right.
But anywho, kind of chasing rabbits there.
Yeah.
But that was when I was a little preoccupied.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, we talked about, we hinted at it a second ago, the governing power over the Jews, the Sadducees and Pharisees, those that were governing them on a religious basis, they started having problems with Jesus because he did this on the Sabbath. This was really the first really big incident in the Gospel of John where they're having a problem with him.
Right.
So because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him. This was in verse 16. In his defense, Jesus said to them, "My Father is always at his work to this very day, and I too am working." For this reason, they tried all the more to kill him. So, it wasn't just that, that there had been a sect of these people within in Sanhedrin that were plotting. They didn't like him. He was a threat to their power.
Absolutely.
And so behind the scenes, they were plotting. But now,
it's more in the open.
It's more in the open. They're not hiding it anymore.
Right.
They're more bold in what they're doing.
They're deliberately taking action against him.
Yes. Not only for breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father and making himself equal with God. So there's a few ways Jesus talks about the Father in here. He says, "My Father" and "our Father," but he never says "your Father."
Right.
Which is interesting. To me, that means that, we are co-inheritants.
That's right.
But we are not co-inheritants without Jesus.
That's right.
And that is, I think, is a very unique distinction here that John,
I agree,
carefully crafts.
It also shows that Jesus always used intentional language.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing and he knew what he was saying. He did it with a purpose.
Right.
But that shows you too there that you look at it and you look at what these what the Jews were doing, what they had to do just to make a living of this Roman occupation. A lot of them were having to go fishing at night or doing their jobs on the Sabbath, having to hide it from the Jewish Sanhedrin just to be able to pay their taxes, just to be able to make a living.
Right.
And hiding in shame of these things is exactly the opposite of what the Torah and the Jewish system was set up to be.
Sure. And I think kind of what you want me to hit on earlier, the reason for the Pharisees, the reason they came about, so when the Romans occupied what they called Judea, Pontius Pilate made sure that he had control and power over every little aspect of their life, including their religious practices.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is their religious practices was kind of goes against being, having a ruling overlord class that doesn't believe the same way that they did.
Right.
So the reason for the Pharisees, how they came to be, was they started coming up with all these purity practices to keep them in God's favor, because they weren't able to do all of the things that was in the Mosaic laws, because Pontius Pilate and the Romans forbid it. Right. So that's kind of how they came about. So the Pharisees were also trying to, yes, that they had become a little overboard with what they were doing and maybe a little power hungry, but they also seen it as kind of a way to try to maintain their system of their purity laws to try to stay in favor of God. Well, and they they just absolutely refused to accept that Jesus Christ was the Messiah that they had been looking for. But that also kind of plays right into the entire plan for Jesus to be crucified and to be that sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, and that kind of just shows you what centuries of passing since the last prophet had really done to the Jews and this occupation and the things they had struggled through and everything. They had become a very works dependent faith system.
Right.
They thought that their standing with God depended on their own ability to keep the law and do what God was asking them to do. They failed to realize that even the greatest amongst them to that time failed to keep the law.
Right.
But what kept them, so we use King David as an example. Even Old Testament scripture says he was a man after God's own heart.
Right.
And it wasn't that he could keep the law perfectly, it's that he had a repentant heart. He was constantly seeking God. He was constantly seeking to be in relationship with God. And you see that throughout Psalms and the books of Samuel and even his offspring, even Solomon. Solomon went down a bad road
Right.
at the end of it, but you see the way that they were thinking and how David was constantly chasing after what God wanted. It wasn't his ability to keep the law, obviously not. He did some atrocious things.
Right.
But that's what the Jews had came to do. It was because of their interpretation of Torah and how they had taken it to try and maintain.
Which is the first 4 books of our Bible today.
Yes. And so they had tried to take that to try and maintain their religious identity. And they thought, well, if we do this well enough, we will remain God's people. And what they didn't realize is it wasn't whether or not they did it well enough. They were always going to be God's people. They needed to be seeking a relationship with God. They needed to be repentant for things. And you see that constantly.
Yeah, instead of it kind of became more of an exchange system for them instead of having a relationship with God, which was the intended purpose.
Yeah.
From the way I understand it.
And that's one reason why he got Jesus we're fast forwarding a little bit here, but when he got so upset about the money changers in the temple, it became I can do whatever I want as long as I can make enough money and buy a big enough sacrifice.
Right.
And that's not what God intended. It was totally not that. It was to be a reminder that something had to bear the price.
Yeah, it's like that the commercial with the elderly ladies talking about social media from, I don't know, it's probably like 10 years ago now, where she's like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Not at all. So in verse 19 there, Jesus gave them this answer: "Very truly I tell you that the Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees the Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son does also." Kind of little monkey see, monkey do there.
Absolutely. So that not only is that alluding to Christ and God, in the Trinity Godhead figure there, it's also a reflection of how you should lead your children.
Yep, absolutely. Especially men at your job as fathers.
Set the example.
Yep.
It's tough out there sometimes, dads. I know it is, but you're called by a higher power to do the absolute best job you can to be a good example for your kids.
It's part of denying your own flesh.
That's right.
Our flesh does not want to do these things. I know, because I'm a man and a dad, just like a lot of you, and it is about denying your own flesh.
That's right.
That's scripture.
That's what it boils down to.
That's what it comes down to. You've got to deny your own flesh. You have to do things even though you don't want to, even though they may be uncomfortable, even though they may not be fun, or they may be unpleasant. You're denying your own flesh. You're serving a higher purpose. You're building something better past you.
Right.
So verse 20, "For the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. Yes, he will show him even greater works than these, so you will be amazed. For as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. Moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him." Very truly, I tell you, whoever hears my words and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be judged, but has crossed over from death to life. Very truly, I tell you, a time is coming and has now come when the dead will hear the Son of the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. So that's interesting there. And so he's establishing the authority that God has given. This is one of the first times that he is truly publicly declaring that he has the authority of God.
Right.
As boldly as he is. I mean, now he's done a little bit here and there, but this is the first time he's been confronted, and he's laying it out for them. He's telling them in no uncertain terms who he is and what authority he has. And they probably heard the dead and thought physically dead.
Right. Not dead in spirit.
That's what I'm reading. That's what I read this as. I read this as a dead in spirit, like you are dead in sin. And when the dead hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. So you're hearing his voice, you're listening, heeding his call. And that's what that word there, listening, means. It doesn't mean you're just hearing it.
Right.
Yeah, it means that you are taking it into consideration, you're following it, you're taking heed, all these things. So it's like growing up, your dad said, hey, you need to get up, take out the trash. You didn't listen. Guess what? You got thumped on the head.
That's right.
But if you listened, if you heeded what he said, and you got up and did what you were supposed to do, then you were just fine.
That's right.
Things worked out all right for you. And that's what he's saying here. Those that are dead in spirit, that hear the Son of God and listen to him, those who hear will live. You'll not be dead.
That's right.
You'll be alive. And he just talked to the woman at the well just a couple of chapters before this. And he was talking about, you come here and you get this water and you thirst after you drink it.
You drink the living waters that I give.
Yeah, then you'll never thirst again. And her answer was, Lord, give me these waters so that I don't have to come here in the middle of the day anymore in shame and draw water out of this well during the hot daytime. And but this is interesting that the way he's wording this, the way, like you said a while ago, the deliberateness that he has with how the purpose he takes to this. Verse 28, do not be amazed at this, for a time is coming when all who are in their graves will hear this voice. And I think that's vindicative of many things. I think that's foreshadowing not only to the spiritual dead, but foreshadowing to when he is crucified and he dies.
Right.
And the dead come out of their graves and start wandering the streets of Jerusalem, and many see them.
Right.
I think it is vindicative and foreshadowing to the end times.
End times, yeah.
Yep. When the dead in Christ shall rise. I think that's it is multiple fold.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
like I said earlier, Christ always spoke with intention.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. And there are very few gospels in my mind that portray that the way that John does. I think John does an excellent job. It's interesting. John was a fisherman, but as we'll see later, John was known. He was known to the Sanhedrin. He was known to the people in the temple. So it tells me he had a little education. He had just a little bit standing.
Right.
So let's try to get through any more. Verse 31, if I testify about myself, my testimony is not true. So what this is interesting, because in a few more chapters, he'll say, my testimony about myself is true. And it's interesting because what he's getting at here is, if I testify about myself, my testimony is not true. That's because under their law at the time, if you were going before the Sanhedrin to get tried, if you gave a testimony about yourself, it wasn't admissible in court. They couldn't take that as evidence.
Right.
They had to, you had to have other witnesses testify on your behalf. Your own testimony couldn't be taken into consideration. Verse 32, there's another who testifies in my favor, and I know that his testimony about me is true. He says, "You have sent John, and he has testified to the truth. Not that I accept human testimony, but I mention that you may be saved. John was a lamp that burned and gave light. Then you chose for a time to enjoy his light. I have a testimony weightier than that of John. For the works that the Father has given to me to finish, the very works that I'm doing, testify that the Father has sent me." And that is, I mean, this is in the middle of the miracles, and he's saying, "Hey, I've got all these works that I've got to do, and it's going to testify to you that God's the one that sent me."
Right.
I thought that's pretty interesting. Let's fast forward a little bit here. Let's go over to chapter 6. You want to?
Sure.
All right. So this is where Jesus feeds the multitude here, with the loaves and fishes. So he had been given a sermon, essentially, and had been talking for quite some while, and people were hungry. Verse 2 says, "A great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick." So people had seen all this in Jerusalem, and they followed him out of the city to the Sea of Galilee, the shore of it. When Jesus went up on the mountainside, sat down with his disciples, Jewish Passover festival was near. So this, I think, if I remember right, this was the second Passover during Jesus' ministry. So his ministry lasted, they say, about 3 years. So he would have had 3 Passover festivals,
Right.
Which is also foreshadowing 3 Passover festivals, 3 days in the grave.
That's right.
So, the Passover was to celebrate the spirit of death passing over the Jewish people,
right?
And only taking the Egyptian firstborns and not theirs. And this was the firstborn of God,
right?
And he's the one,
only begotten Son.
Yeah, so he's the one that has to take the burden.
That's right.
He has to be the one that the lamb to paint the blood on the post. Like all kinds of imagery there. But the three days and 3 Passovers. So 3 days of 3 Passover celebrations, 3 days of atonement, and then 3 days in the grave.
Right.
And then once that, guess what? You're no longer burdened by needing to make that atonement. You're free.
That's right.
So I thought that's when I seen that, I was like, huh, well, 3 Passover celebrations.
Would you look at that?
That's pretty interesting. Like it's, we're big Star Wars nerds. George Lucas said, "It's like a poetry. It rhymes."
Right.
So, but Jesus looked up and he saw the crowd. And Philip said, "Where shall we buy the bread for these people to eat?" So Philip, one of the disciples, said, "Hey, these guys are hungry. We don't have enough bread to feed all these people." He asked this only to test him, for he already had in his mind what he was going to do. He said to Philip. So Philip, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. So he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" So Jesus was testing Philip right here. He was testing the disciples to see what their answer was going to be, because he already knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him and said, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have one bite." Just one bite. And even though bread back then was probably vastly superior to bread we have now, as far as nutrients go,
right.
It still was not enough.
I don't know. The homemade bread my wife makes is pretty darn good.
It is. Yeah, it is. But these people have been making bread for a long time. But they didn't have any store-bought loaves.
Right.
But just the fact that he's saying it'll take half a year's wages for everybody to just get one bite. So even 2 bites, meaning even if it took a year's wages and we bought enough for everybody to have 2 bites, they still aren't going to get full. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far would they go among so many?" Jesus had the people sit down. There's plenty of grass in that place. It's kind of crazy. It's a desert. But I can see he is right on the Sea of Galilee. And there's about 5,000 men there. not women.
Not counting women and children.
Yeah, just the men, 5,000 men. Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed those who were seated as much as they had wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over for those who eat. And Jesus saw, after the people saw saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who is coming to the world. So it's interesting. Jesus knew that boy with those 5 loaves and fishes were there before Andrew ever brought him to him. And I don't know. So he knew what he was going to do. He knew that they were there even before the disciples knew about it. Which, I mean, doesn't surprise us now. We know what he was, but at the time, this would have caused a great puzzling, I would think, amongst those disciples. But it's interesting that he puts it to the disciples to start thinking about this. And then he's like, hold on, guys, I got this. And then they fill 12 baskets. And I don't think these are small baskets. I think they were quite large baskets.
I think so too. Also, they're not eating fried catfish. This is probably like a small, what we would think of as a bait fish that's been salted to be preserved.
Yeah.
Which would probably be pretty tasty to someone's palate at the time, but for me, just thinking about it sounds pretty gross.
Yeah, some kind of smoked or salted fish, small fish, so it wouldn't have been huge. But I think
personally, I'd rather have fried catfish or cornbread. But.
Right. Well, it's about the closest we can get to barley loaves instead.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting. But we're about to run out of time here on this episode. We probably want to go ahead and ramp this up on this part and then kick back off again here in just a minute. Fortunately, it'll be a week or two for y'all before you see it. But get started on another part here in a minute. So, but anyways, as we end always, if you like what you're hearing, like, comment, subscribe, have a podcast, give us a 5-star rating or
1-star rating if you don't really care.
I'm gonna make a running joke out of that.
I've noticed.
Or YouTube, make sure that you click the little blue bell. Spotify, give us a rating, give us some comments, give us some feedback. If you see us, those of you that know us personally, see us running around, come up, say hi, and tell us.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate all the feedback we do get, and we enjoy y'all keep coming back and listening. It really encourages us.
We appreciate it, John.
So, but anyways, with that, I guess we will see y'all again next time.
Y'all take it easy.